I go camping alone a few times a year. Not because I dislike people, but because it's the only time my head ever feels quiet. No notifications, no traffic, no expectations. Just trees, wind, and whatever noise your own thoughts decide to make. I've been doing solo trips for over a decade, long enough to feel comfortable in the woods and long enough to know when something isn't right. This happened last fall in a remote section of national forest land in the northern part of the state. It wasn't a campground. No marked sites, no bathrooms, no picnic tables. Just miles of backcountry you could legally hike and camp in as long as you followed the basic rules. I chose that area specifically because hardly anyone goes out there once the weather starts cooling down. I parked at a gravel turnout just after sunrise and started hiking in. The trail faded after about 2 miles, turning into nothing more than a suggestion through the trees. By mid-afternoon, I found a small ridge overlooking a narrow valley with a creek running through it. It felt secluded but not claustrophobic, which is exactly what I like. I set up my tent, gathered firewood, and settled in before dark. The first night was completely normal, quiet, cold, peaceful. I ate, watched the fire burn down, and crawled into my sleeping bag around 10. At some point later, I woke up suddenly, the way you do when your body decides something is off before your brain catches up. The forest was silent, not calm, silent. No insects, no rustling, nothing. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate steps moving through leaves somewhere downhill from my tent. Not close, but not far either. I froze and listened. The steps stopped. I told myself it was a deer or maybe a raccoon. Animals wander at night, that's normal. After a minute of nothing, I relaxed just enough to start drifting back to sleep. That's when I heard a single sharp exhale. Not a snort like a deer makes, not a growl, just a heavy breath like someone clearing their lungs after holding it too long. I didn't sleep much after that. Morning came, and with daylight, everything felt smaller, less threatening. I checked the area around my camp out of curiosity. I didn't find tracks, the ground was too covered in leaves for that, but I did notice something odd. A small branch had been stuck upright in the soil about 10 feet from my tent. Not fallen, planted. It wasn't there the night before. I was sure of that because I had cleared that exact spot while gathering wood. I pulled it out, tossed it aside, and tried not to overthink it. People leave weird traces in the woods sometimes. It didn't necessarily mean someone was nearby. I packed up and hiked deeper in, figuring more distance from the trailhead meant fewer chances of running into anyone. By late afternoon, I reached a flatter area near a dry creek bed and set up camp again. The forest there felt older, thicker trunks, less undergrowth, darker even in daylight. That evening, as I was cooking, I heard a faint clacking sound echo through the trees, like 2 pieces of wood being knocked together. It came once, then again a few seconds later, farther off. I assumed it was a branch shifting in the wind, except there wasn't any wind. The trees were completely still. The sound repeated a few more times, always from a slightly different direction. Eventually it stopped, and I convinced myself it was just the forest doing forest things. Night fell fast under that canopy. I put out my fire early and climbed into the tent. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke again. This time I knew why. Something was moving around my campsite, not walking through it, circling it. Slow steps crunching leaves, stopping then starting again somewhere else. The pattern was wrong for an animal. Predators don't pace like that, and prey animals don't linger. This felt deliberate, like whatever it was didn't mind me knowing it was there. I reached for my headlamp, but didn't turn it on. For some reason, shining a light felt like the worst thing I could do. The steps continued for what felt like hours, though it was probably minutes. Then they stopped, directly behind my head, just on the other side of the thin tent wall. I could hear breathing, slow, wet, close enough that I could tell it wasn't small. Every instinct screamed at me to make noise, to shout, to scare it off, but something deeper told me to stay absolutely still. So I did. I lay there, barely breathing, staring at the dark fabric inches from my face. After a long time, the breathing faded. The steps resumed, moving away into the trees until they disappeared completely. I don't think I slept at all after that. At first light, I got out of the tent, heart pounding, scanning the area. Nothing looked disturbed. No prints, no broken branches, no obvious sign anything had been there. But my pack, which I had left leaning against a log, was on the ground. One of the side pockets was unzipped. I don't leave pockets unzipped. Inside, everything looked mostly intact, except for one thing missing: a metal cup I keep clipped to the outside. I searched around the campsite, but couldn't find it anywhere. I packed up immediately. I didn't care about finishing the trip anymore. I just wanted out. Instead of retracing my route exactly, I angled toward what I knew would eventually intersect with an old logging road. About an hour into the hike, I saw something metallic on the ground ahead. My cup. It was sitting upright in the middle of the path, like someone had placed it there, carefully, not tossed, not dropped, positioned. That's when I realized something else. The path I was on wasn't the one I had been following a moment earlier. The terrain didn't match my memory at all. The slope was wrong, the tree spacing was different, even the direction of the sunlight felt off. It was as if I had drifted somewhere else without noticing. I grabbed the cup, clipped it back onto my pack, and started moving faster, trying to push through the rising panic. Every few minutes, I felt that same sensation of being watched, like eyes tracking me from just out of sight. Eventually, I found the logging road. Relief hit so hard my legs almost gave out. I followed it for another hour until I saw my car through the trees. Something was wrong immediately. All 4 doors were closed, just like I'd left them, but the rear hatch was open. My stomach dropped. I hadn't opened it when I parked. I was absolutely certain of that. I approached slowly, half expecting someone to be standing behind it. No one was there. Inside, my gear bins had been shifted around, and one of them was open. Nothing appeared stolen, just disturbed. I didn't check anything else. I slammed the hatch shut, got in, and drove. I didn't stop until I reached a gas station nearly 40 miles away. I still go camping, but never in that forest again. The part that bothers me most isn't the footsteps or the breathing or even the missing cup. It's the feeling that whatever was out there didn't want to hurt me. It wanted me to know I wasn't alone, and it wanted me to leave.